What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. These are my Draftkings MMA picks for UFC Jacksonville. We got Ilia Topuria going against Josh Emmett.
I need all the wins, yeah. Harder than all that is. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out.
And we are back talking some Draftkings, breaking down a massive 14-fight slate. Even though we might lose some as always, but as of now, 14-fight slate for UFC Jacksonville. Very, very good card. Really looking forward to this one. We got a fight night card outside of the Apex, and they're putting on an absolute show for us. Really no complaints about any fight, so definitely looking forward to the card. Before we get into the picks, guys, if you guys can please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. It is much, much appreciated. Check out dfsbythenumbers.com. There you'll see all the content that you do not see on YouTube. You got my stats, the targets, projections, rankings, my DFS article, and most importantly, the lineup optimizer as well. And then I'm also going to be starting some prize picks content as well on dfsbythenumbers.com. So be sure to check all that out. And yeah, looking forward to like I said, looking forward to this card, looking forward to this slate. It's kind of a tricky slate just due to the fact that there's so many options on this card. There's a lot of live dogs, I think, as well, so it should be a fun one. Other than that, be sure to check out Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code DFSBTN for a 100% deposit bonus. We'll talk about my favorite play later in the show there, but yeah, check out some Underdog Fantasy, guys. All right. Let's get into the video. We're going to kick it off with the fight doesn't go to decision lines. I think we're going to get a lot of violence this card. I think we're going to get a lot of finishes, and I think every single one of these fights do finish as well. So we're going to kick it up top with Ilia Topuria, Josh Emmett, minus 550. Fight doesn't go to decision. Some books even have like a minus 800. Fight doesn't go to decision. It's safe to say that this fight does probably finish here. We got Ilia Topuria 9,500, Josh Emmett 6,700. I'm going to be very heavily exposed to this main event here. Ilia Topuria, I'm more so on his side. He's very expensive at 9,500, but I feel like he's going to go out there and finish Josh Emmett probably within the first round and a half, 2 rounds. As far as Josh Emmett, 6,700, I think he does make for a good dart throw. He is 38 years old at featherweight, but he does still hit like a truck, and power is the last thing to go. So it's a great fight to target this main event. I would not try to avoid this one, but I'm going to be more so on the Ilia Topuria side, but a great fight to target overall. Next, we got Cody Brundage going against SD Dumas, and we have the fight doesn't go to decision, sitting around minus 500, wider on some books as well, and they're actually putting this as the first fight of the night. This was a fight that was supposed to be on the main card, and they took it and put it on the very first fight on this card. So it's going to be nice and early, and it's a fight that I think, honestly, it's got to be targeted. I mean, this is a Cody Brundage fight. This is a guy that's going to go balls to the wall, especially coming in here on about a week's notice, right? Both these guys can win by knockout. Both these guys can win by submission. Cody Brundage, I'm not in love with the price tag, to be honest, at 8,700, but he does have wrestling upside. He does have knockout upside, finish upside overall. So for that reason, you have to play Cody Brundage. But SD Dumas at 7,500, he's a guy that he has a ton of power. We've seen Brundage hurt. We've seen Brundage knocked out. We've seen Brundage sub. SD has some good submission game as well. So at this price tag, I'm more so interested in the SD Dumas side at 7,500, but Brundage is absolutely in play as well. This is a fight that I'm going to be, again, very heavily invested in. Same thing with this next fight. Trevor Peek going against Chepe Mariscal. This is going to be a very good fight to target. Like these 4 fights here are going to be my heaviest exposed fights on the entire card. Trevor Peek, this is a Trevor Peek fight. Trevor Peek fights like an absolute madman. Really, both guys do. Mariscal as well. These guys are going to stand in the middle and bang until one man falls. I think these guys are going to easily pay off the price tag and win, because I think this fight finishes in the very first round. So, knockdown upside between the both, a ton of volume in that first round. Like Trevor Peek is just throwing a ton of volume out there. Wild guy on the feet. I think somebody's getting finished here early. 8,200 for Trevor Peek could look like a very, very good gift, honestly, because if he wins this fight, he's going to put well over 100 points. And Mariscal, I think, makes for an interesting dog. He's going to be much lower owned than Trevor Peek, you got to imagine. So it's a fight that I want a lot of. I have more Trevor Peek than Mariscal, but I'm not completely counting out Mariscal. We'll talk about him later in the video. All right, and then we got Justin Tafa going against Austin Lane, heavyweight fight. Austin Lane has a 100% finish rate in his wins and his losses. He's been knocked out 3 times. I believe all 3 of those knockout losses come in the very first round. And kind of like the last fight, I don't think it's going to be a crazy wild pace like the last fight, but I do think this fight does finish in the very first round, and I think it's probably Justin Tafa getting that first round knockout. Austin Lane's going to have a big height and reach advantage, but I don't like the striking defense. He has that tall man's defense, chin up in the air. He's been knocked out several times. I think Tafa starches him in the first round, so for that reason, I do like Tafa 8,800, but if Austin Lane comes in here with the game plan of taking down Tafa, he could go out there and put up a massive score at 7,400. So another great fight target, but I'm more so on the Tafa side in this one. Let's get to our core plays. We'll talk about a couple guys we've already talked about. That's Ilia Topuria, 9,500. And yeah, I like Topuria in this matchup. Do I agree with the line? Not particularly, but he could go out there and look like a massive favorite here. I think Josh Emmett is definitely getting a little bit disrespected, but, you know, Topuria, I think this guy's the real deal. He's 12 years younger. He has a BJJ black belt. He can wrestle. This is a guy that has just a ton of power on the feet. Josh Emmett, 38 years old at this point. I think the weight cut's really starting to get to him. He looked awful in his last weight cut on the weigh-ins against Yair Rodriguez. But yeah, I think Topuria does get him out of there. I would like to see Topuria wrestle. Josh Emmett, I know Emmett does have a wrestling background, all that, but I would not mind seeing Emmett, where Topuria mixing the wrestling there. He's a very, very good grappler. But overall, I do think Topuria gets the finish at some point here. 9,500, expensive, but I think he wins and puts up a big score. Trevor Peek, we touched on him quite a bit. I mean, 8,200. Trevor Peek's a guy with a 100% finish rate. He's going against Mariscal, who's coming in here on short notice. He's coming up a weight class, a guy that typically fights at 145, coming up to 155 here. Trevor Peek's going to be much bigger. Trevor Peek's going to probably hit much harder. These guys are going to go to war. These guys are going to throw down, and I trust Trevor Peek, at this, I trust the size of Trevor Peek. I trust the toughness of Trevor Peek, where we have seen Mariscal knocked out several times, 3 times in his career to be exact. So, like Trevor Peek, going to have a ton of them. But we'll talk about Mariscal more in a bit. Brendan Allen, somebody we have not touched on yet, 9,100. I think Brendan Allen has all the tools to make this look super easy. I mean, Bruno Silva's a guy that hits like an absolute truck. Honestly, one of the hardest hitters in the division. If Allen takes this guy down, I think he's going to run right through him, to be honest. Bruno Silva is allegedly a black belt in BJJ, but he's been submitted like 6 or 7 times. I mean, he does not have a great ground game. And if Allen gets on top, we've seen what Allen can do. I mean, he submitted Andre Muniz in his last fight. He was like a phenomenal grappler. So if you can submit a guy like Andre Muniz, guys like that, he should be able to submit Bruno Silva, no problem whatsoever. And I think it could come early. It all just depends when he starts wrestling there. So the fight IQ is always a concern with Brendan Allen. He very well could get knocked out if he tries to stand and bang, but I mean, he has the path to succeed here and put up a massive score. Justin Tafa, we touched on him, 8,800. I'm just not sure Austin Lane is UFC caliber, to be honest. A guy that's been knocked out 3 times. Not in love with the striking, not in love with the striking defense of Austin Lane. Justin Tafa is going to be the better striker by a mile. It all comes down to if Austin Lane is able to, first of all, even attempt takedowns. He's got to do that, and then he's got to get the takedowns, because if he doesn't, he's getting knocked out on the feet. Obviously, these guys are heavyweights. They both have a ton of power, but like I said, Tafa in the striking, much, much, much better. So give me Tafa. Going to have my fair share of him this week. Moving on to the GPP plays here, the tournament plays. Tatsuro Taira, 9,400, 100 cheaper than Topuria, going to be lower owned than Topuria, and a guy that, I think is a solid play this week for sure. He's taking on Kletzen Rodriguez there. Taira has really good wrestling, but even better grappling. I mean, this guy's grappling is phenomenal. Some of the best grappling in the division, honestly, and he's only like 23 years old. I think this guy has a huge ceiling. I mean, the slick grappling, the striking's coming along. I think he has submission upside here against Kletzen Rodriguez, takedown upside, control time upside, and like I said, he's going to be a lot lower owned than Ilia Topuria this week, and cheaper as well. Cody Brundage, 8,700. We touched on him a little bit. I hate the price tag. I think this fight's a lot closer than these price tags do indicate, but it's hard to deny that Brundage has upside, wrestling upside, control time upside, and early finish upside. Brundage is going to go and throw down early. You got to believe he's going to wrestle early. He's going to look for that early finish. I do have some concerns about the durability of Brundage, the short notice aspect of things, but if he does win this fight, I think it's in the first round. At 8,700, he's very much in play this week. Gabriel Santos, 9,200. A guy that definitely is expensive, but he's going against David Onama. I just like the overall game of Santos. On the feet, he throws volume. He's very dangerous on the feet. But when it gets to the mat, that's his bread and butter there. We saw Onama kind of struggle on the mat. We saw Mason Jones take him down several times. We saw Nate Lambert get him down several times, all that. If Gabriel Santos is able to get him down, I think he can have a lot of success and probably even finish David Onama on the mat. So I like Gabriel Santos. I think this is going to be a very high-paced fight. I think the winner's going to score very well. But I do lean towards that Gabriel Santos side at 9,200. And then lastly, Chepe Mariscal, 8,000. You got to have him. Like I like Peak this week. A lot of people like Peak this week. Peak is going to be the higher owned fighter of the two, but somebody's getting served here in this matchup. Somebody's probably getting served in the first round. Trevor Peak, not defensively sound whatsoever. We've seen him hurt multiple times, especially on the Contender Series. Was like almost close to getting out of there several times. I mean, Mariscal's going to stand and bang. He's going to look for that knockout. And Mariscal's a guy that when he smells blood, he goes all out for that finish. So I think somebody's getting served here. I do lean Peak, but it'd be kind of silly to leave Mariscal out of your lineups, especially if you're doing 20 max, 150 max as well. All right, time for some underdog. Hit the play last week. We had the Alessandro Costa to win by finish. Basically, we had the higher on the 0.5 finishes for Costa. Let's see if we can get this one this week. Don't forget, guys, use that promo code DFSBTN. Sign up on Underdog Fantasy. Get yourself a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. All right, so I'm taking Zhalgas Zhumagulov higher on the 2 takedowns there. I think his game plan is going to be to wrestle. Joshua Van, very dangerous on the feet, but he's shown that he can absolutely be taken down. No takedown defense. And then also, I just think Zhalgas, if he's watched any footage of this guy at all, it's going to be to wrestle. And Zhalgas does anyway. Zhalgas is a guy that does only average about 1.5 takedowns per 50 minutes. But like I said, I think the game plan here is going to be to wrestle. So if you like that, check it out. And yeah, check out Underdog Fantasy. Very, very fun thing to do on Saturdays along with DraftKings, Prize Picks, all that good stuff. All right, let's move on to the live dogs here. There's a couple this week. We'll start with Phil Rowe, 7,700. I mean, you can't ignore a guy with a 100% finish rate going against the guy, Neil Magny, who I think Magny wins this fight. I think Magny wins this fight by decision. I think Magny's a better fighter, but my goodness, Magny's been finished 8 times in his career. Phil Rowe can crack. Phil Rowe's a black belt in BJJ. It shouldn't shock anybody if Phil Rowe goes out there and knocks out Magny or gets a club and sub, something like that. So 7,700 for Phil Rowe. If he does get this win, I think he's going to be semi-low owned. And on top of that, if he gets this win, it's going to be by finish because Phil Rowe only wins by finish. So I'm picking Magny to win, but Phil Rowe on DraftKings I think is the way to go. Loic Rojabov, 7,700. This is a guy that's put up a massive score in his debut. Much tougher matchup in this fight, but still, I mean, this is a guy that wrestles very early and very often. This guy can go out there. I think he attempted like 20 takedowns just about in his UFC debut. If he's able to do that, 7,800. If he wins this fight, expect a lot of takedowns. I don't know if he finishes this fight, but if it goes to decision, still. I mean, in his last fight, it went to decision. He put up like 120, something like that. So don't mind some Rajabov, 7,800 in a fight where I think there's going to be a ton of takedowns on both sides. SD Dumas, 7,500. The price tag to me here, it's just off. Cody Brundage, I really don't trust the durability with him. And Dumas hits very hard. He has a solid submission game as well. I think so. Just like the Peak fight, I think somebody's getting finished in this matchup. I think it's early. And for that reason, this price tag on Dumas just really sticks out to me this week. Going to be playing a decent amount of Dumas. Obviously, Brundage is very much in play as well. I'm actually picking Brundage to win, but it's the price tag here that's just crazy for Dumas. 7,500 for a guy that has a ton of finishing upside here in this one. And then Austin Lane, 7,400. I think Tafa knocks him out, but we got a heavyweight fight, low-level heavyweight fight. Austin Lane, his path is probably to wrestle or maybe catch Tafa on the feet, but I doubt that. But if he can get on top of Tafa, like the one thing that did impress me with Lane was that ground and pound. This guy has very good ground and pound. His wrestling's not good, but he's very physically strong. He used to play football. So maybe he goes out there and tackles. Justin Tafa gets on top, and that might be it. So it's a heavyweight fight. Greasy heavyweight. You probably have to play some Lane here, but I fully think he gets knocked out in this one. Honorable mention, there we go. There was somebody else I wanted to talk. I think Jack Jenkins is a very live dog. I'm not sure he has the most DK upside, but I think Jack Jenkins is a live dog that can go out there and win. Joshua Van, I think, is a live dog against Zhalgas Zhumagulov just because everybody's live. against Zhalgas Magulov because the judges hate him, with Joshua Van, another guy with a 100% finish rate as well. So yeah, lots of live dogs this week sticking out. All right, let's move on to the punt plays. Someone we talked about, Bruno Silva. He has 7,100 this week. If it turns out Allen wants to go out there and strike, he probably gets knocked out. Bruno Silva could go out there and put up a massive score at this price tag. It all just comes down to the fight IQ of Brendan Allen, which at times has not been good. We've seen Allen knocked out by Chris Curtis, Sean Strickland. I don't think he even attempted maybe one takedown against Sean Strickland. Just was not a great game plan. If he comes in here and messes around on the feet with Silva, it's going to be a very bad night for him. So for that reason, I don't mind some Silva at this price tag. And then Josh Emmett, 6,700, the ultimate pump play. Puncher's chance. This guy hits like a truck. Topuria, we've seen him drop before by Jai Herbert. If Josh Emmett wins this fight, he's going to be pretty low owned. I just think there's going to be a ton of ownership on Ilia Topuria this week. I think Topuria is going to be the highest owned fighter on the slate. If Josh Emmett pulls off this upset, you're going to have a big advantage. I'm going to have a ton of Topuria, but I will be sprinkling some Josh Emmett as well. All right, and then finally the fades. Zhalgas Magulov, I think he wins this fight. I think he actually scores decent in this fight, but it is really hard to get to Zhalgas Magulov this week when you have Topuria up there in this 9K range. You have Tafa, 200 cheaper. You have Gabriel Santos up in that 9K range. Brendan Allen up in that 9K range. You have somebody we haven't even talked about, Randy Brown, up in the 9K range, who I think is live for a knockout. I just can't. Tatsuro Taira up there as well. I just can't get to Zhalgas Magulov this week. I think he scores well. I think he puts up a respectable score. I think he's even fine in cash games, but in terms of tournaments, I don't know if you can hit that optimal lineup with Zhalgas Magulov in your lineup this week. But that is about it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, check out dfsbythenumbers.com. Everything is pretty much ready to go. Working on the DFS article now. Got the stats all out, the targets, the projections, the ownership projections, optimizer, all good to go. All that good stuff. And like I said, I'm going to be starting some prize picks content on there as well. Give a couple of my favorite plays in terms of the significant strikes, fight time, takedowns, fantasy score, all that. So be sure to check that out. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you guys soon, going live Friday and Saturday. So be sure to subscribe, turn on the post notifications, not miss out on that. And best of luck for UFC Jacksonville. See you later.